Welcome back to Bookstage and Screen. We have the wonderful Brendan Park, the digital manager of Channel 31. Welcome.
Hi Sam. Hi Gordon. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. We're very excited. We've mentioned before that Channel 31 is taking a brand new direction, and we wanted to talk to you and find out all about it.
Sure. Well, thanks for the opportunity for having me on. It's certainly an exciting and brand new direction. I guess we're at the forefront of digital disruption in a way, that the way content is distributed is changing significantly from the old media through to the new of social media and online. So we're being forced to transition pretty quickly by a government decision, but we're getting on with it, and the future is certainly bright.
Fantastic.
We have discussed what has happened in the past with the government sort of putting you in a position to make a change. Just give the listeners like a brief overview of why you're changing from what you are to what you're going to be.
Sure. Well, I guess there's two sides to that question. One is, as I've just said, that the way content is distributed is changing, but the why we're being forced by the government to make that change so quickly is really unprecedented globally for a community broadcaster to switch from TV to the internet overnight, which we'll do on December 31 this year. And we're still grappling with exactly why the government has made that decision, and we made that pretty clear to them in our campaign last year, and we received an extension of 12 months, which was really essential for us to transition our business models from an old TV sponsorship model to online. But the broader question as to why this is happening, I guess it's technological developments are forcing this change, and we still see ourselves as an incubator of talent, I guess, for producers from the Melbourne area or now from Australia who want to make that leap from just making any form of content through to a more polished sort of professional content product, I guess, and we're still going to support producers to do that. It's just that the distribution mechanisms will change.
And it's Melbourne that is going to be doing it for Channel 31, because there are community television stations all around Australia, but from what we chatted about before, Melbourne is the first to do that, is that right?
Well, we're all making the leap at the same time. So what will happen is at midnight on December 31st this year, we'll just simply lose access to our broadcast spectrum, which means that our 24-hour linear TV broadcast feed will just cease to exist. Right. And at the moment, there's Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, and Melbourne. Sydney's station actually decided to take a new direction and went off the air earlier this year, I think. So there's four of us making the switch, but I think the bigger picture is that eventually we're hoping to become one kind of national community online video broadcaster. It makes sense now that global is local and local is global, and there's no fences up in terms of where TV spectrum broadcast areas reach or anything. You can watch content from wherever you are in the world. So we're working closer with our counterparts in the other capital cities and working towards bringing it all together into one sort of community video platform for any producers out there.
So community broadcasting, I guess I should call it now, has been the launching pad of many great people. I mean, you've got some quite famous people that have been out there for a while, and Hamish and Andy and Rove and 20-something. They started their series there, and we've even had some guests in Samoa TV and a few other people in here, Arden Batira and Fixer Up, who have been all on Channel 31. So going forward, nothing like that is going to change. As you say, it can only bring new opportunities to people.
Yeah, definitely. There's one thing that I'll just add there. In terms of the talent that comes out of community TV, you've named a number of them, and there's producers of all sizes that are on TV. But I think the more important thing to remember is that for every one of those shows or stars, if you like, there's background teams of 20, 30, 50 people who help produce these shows. So they're all the people that are that have something to thank community TV for, I guess, in terms of helping them progress their career, and they're the people that will be affected by the government's decision. But In a more positive light, no, we're certainly going to support these people to produce their content just for new media. And I guess, to put it in a nutshell, in the past, Channel 31 or the community TV broadcasters have been a stepping stone for people who produce content and are maybe aiming for a commercial network, or maybe they want to make a short film, or whatever that might be. Now it's just that the end target platforms have changed. So to put them into two kind of simplified groups, new content platforms are either social media, so everyone wants a huge audience on social media because that's vital for your survival as a content creator. And the other one would be premium video on demand platforms. So I'm thinking of Netflix or ABC iView or SBS On Demand, any of these sort of app-based video consumption platforms. And now the new sort of target as an up-and-coming creator, you want to get your content onto a platform like that.
So if there are people who are looking to put a show forward with you guys, is there anything, because you're shifting from like broadcast television to online, does that affect like lengths of shows that you would be looking at, because you don't really have to fit into the half-hour slot precisely? Does that play into it?
Sure, length does play into it. I think if you have a look at any video-on-demand platform like Netflix or ABC iView, there's generally... It's not too different to TV, I guess, in terms of 20 or 30-minute episodes, or potentially hour-long, or maybe even feature film length. I think that the more important thing is the nature of the content. And in a 24-hour news or minute-by-minute news cycle that we live in nowadays, putting out very time-sensitive content, so news or something that only relates to an issue that might be important for a few days, that sort of content should go out via social media, because that's the platform that consumers of content are always on. So any news on social media or content is up to the minute. Whereas the video on demand sort of premium content should be less time sensitive, and something that you could potentially release with a binge watching model. So you spend months, years potentially putting together your content, then you decide on a release date. It could be 6 months in the future, and then you use social media to build up a campaign around that and make sure that you've got an audience there ready to watch your premium content product when it's released.
Yeah, and so Channel 31 is, I think you were talking to me about this as well, is that you also have, there's a training platform there. Shane actually spoke to us earlier, a couple of months ago, about you can get on the website, the Facebook site, Channel 31 Production
Motorsport, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're interested, or you have skills, or you want to learn skills, there's things posted all the time where you can put yourself forward and be included and learn some skills, and in different areas as well. But what I was going to say is, with this going forward, are you going to have like an event where you explain about what's happening, or what you're looking for going forward?
Yeah, definitely. We're really focused on some of those tools that you've just mentioned. The Ch31 Production Motorsport is a great place to start for anybody who's out there needing help to produce content or would like to gain experience on the production of content. Just Google Ch31 Production Motorsport and you'll find us on Facebook. And certainly we're putting together a whole bunch of tools and workshops and classes and seminars and all these sorts of things that will communicate just the new direction that we're taking, and we're looking at locking in a few dates towards the end of the year, so later in October or November, and keep an eye on our website and social media for that at Ch31 Melbourne. But also, I guess from our point of view, it's quite a strange scenario in that we're still having to put quite a number of resources into running the old TV model, and all our producers are still producing for TV, right, because that's viable, very much viable, yep, up until December 31, when it's not.
So is it a New Year's Eve party at the station?
Yeah, I can't say too much, but I think we're potentially looking at breaking a world record in terms of live TV broadcasts. So we've got a few celebrations planned for our last week in December. So stay tuned.
Will do.
All right. Well, we'll give that a plug when we get closer to it. But it does actually sound. I mean, initially when I heard that you were being shut down, I thought it was sort of a silly move, but you guys have responded quite well. Is that where you guys are thinking you're at, that you've taken the challenge on and done something new?
Oh, very much so. I think it's forced us to really ramp up our focus on digital and on online. And I think you only have to look around at some of the larger commercial TV broadcasters in this country and the way that they're grappling with the shift from old media to new, to find that it's not something that is necessarily easy. And as long as you've got that old TV model operating, perhaps the urgency, the sense of urgency, isn't there. For us, it's very much been there for all of our staff. Every single day we come into work, the pressure's on to try and make it work. And it's certainly been a long and at times stressful process, but I really think we're coming to a point now where we've got a really good handle on how it is going to work and how we can continue to support community content, because at the end of the day, probably 80% of Australia's community TV content has traditionally come out of the Melbourne area. So we're really a strong, creative community here, and that the creation of content will go on, and we want to support that and be part of that. So yeah, it's coming to a head, and the future is certainly bright.
Fantastic. Well, on a personal note, just tell us what a digital manager does. So what's your role in terms of the
managing things of digital nature?
Sure. There's a number of things. Broadly, I sort of look after our digital strategy and our social media strategy, and how our video on demand and our producers' social media audiences will work hand in hand. And then there's also, I guess, a lot of the less glamorous sides to the job, which is just a lot of technical admin, so ingesting content and optimizing content. So things like thumbnails and tags and descriptions and all of these, we take them for granted, but a lot of thought goes into them, and the way that we distribute and publish content. There's a real sort of science to it. But I'm also hoping and looking, once we transition off TV at the end of the year, to work much closer with our producers and to really empower everybody to assist with the distribution and the promotion of their content.
So basically, if people were still looking at making a show for community TV, can they still do basically the same show that they were planning on doing previously? Do they have to think about any modifications for digital, or is it just all systems go?
All systems go in a sense. You now need to work just as closely on developing your social media strategy as you do on your content. And as I mentioned before, I think anything that's very time sensitive, so perhaps weekly news shows, they're more suited to distribution on social media, and they could be in the form of shorter clips that touch on an issue as soon as it happens, and that could be released using an iPhone, for instance. It doesn't necessarily need all of the production polish that you would traditionally add to a TV show, but then that doesn't mean that you do away with your show. You just sort of slightly tweak the nature of it, and the content that goes out via a video on demand app should still be pretty close to community TV content, really, just working on the increasing the production values and making sure that it's not sort of time sensitive, because it does take time to put that into a video on demand app ecosystem, and if by the time it's published it's already irrelevant, the audience isn't going to respond. So that's the sort of content that should be on social media.
But that's kind of great that you can spread your ideas on now different mediums, and you guys are all over it. So even if you coming with an idea and you're a little bit rusty about it, you guys can certainly guide you in the right direction. So I think it's very exciting, and I know you've been forced into it, but I think it's very exciting, and I think you're going to lead the way and show everyone how well it can be done. So thanks for coming and talking to us, Brendan, about it, and we encourage anyone who's got a good idea that supports and would like to support their local community in terms of television or producing a content, to talk to Channel 31, because they're always open to new ideas.
Definitely. Thanks very much for having me on, Sam and Gordon. And then, as you've just said, please get in touch. Follow us on social.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Brendan.